I thought as a poor son of a single parent, drug addicted father in the 80s, when I get the big $1 million home, the luxury cars, and all these different things, I'll be happy. And such is not the case. So in my egotistic life, I got all the things that would make one happy, who are those who are led by the ego, and those things that make me happy.
I'm Michael A. Blunt, Executive Mindset Coach, and welcome to Wealthy Minded, the podcast for elite men who are looking for success beyond the money. Welcome, Wealthy Minded community. Today, I am joined by my friend and my brother, Ashley T. Head. Ashley is originally from Dayton, Ohio, and his story is pretty incredible. After losing his mom as a baby, he was raised with his dad until substance abuse took him away at just the age of 7 years old. By high school, he was living in foster care, but even then, he rose above adversity to become a track star and scholar athlete. Ashley went on to graduate at the top of his class from Morehouse College, which is where we actually met. And since then, he earned his MBA and built over 2 decades of executive experience in the biotech and pharmaceutical industries. Today, Ashley is the CEO of Crow's Poppin', a brand he co-founded with his wife, Lindsay, to revolutionize the curly hair market and to celebrate diverse beauty standards with dolls featuring natural curls and makeup. In this episode, Ashley and I will talk about resilience and how he's used mindset to rise above his background and become a millionaire, entrepreneur, husband, and proud father of 4. Welcome, everybody, Ashley T. Head.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, man. And it is good to see my friend on here, someone who hasn't taken one of my programs, someone who's not a student, and someone who has not coached me, just someone who is completely objective to this whole experience that I go through. So, Ashley, first question for you.
Yes.
Share with the listeners how we met.
How do we meet? So it was my freshman year of college. And I worked in the admissions office at Morehouse, so as for work study. So as a part of work study, I gave all the college tours, and I was also responsible for organizing the pre-freshman summer program and the pre-freshman week during spring break of my freshman year. So while most went to the beaches to hang out and have fun, I, as a freshman, organized a committee of about 40 Morehouse students to host about 200 to 250 pre-freshmen or juniors and seniors from high school who were thinking about coming to Morehouse. They would stay either in a hotel or on campus for about a week. I organized everything, the buses, the food, everything. And Mike was lucky enough to be placed in my group. So I think there were about 10 of you. And spring break week, junior year of Mike's high school year. And I was a freshman and I hosted, and here we are 25 years later.
25 years later.
Yeah. So that's how we met.
I remember we went on this vacation just probably about a few weeks ago. We went to Joshua Tree, and I was so surprised that you were a freshman during that time. And that seems to be the story of your life is, just working years in educating years and learning years ahead of the class, essentially.
Yes.
So you've always been years ahead of the curve. You always been, someone who is just extremely mature and someone who really stepped into their own well before anyone else did. And always what I admired about you is regardless of your age and regardless of where you were always resilient to some of the obstacles that you faced during those times. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Okay, absolutely, Mike, and thank you for that. And it's true. I can't deny it. So I was born to my mother and father in Dayton, Ohio, and I had 2 older brothers, one 12 years older and one 2 years older. And so I was born in August of '81, but 3 weeks later, my mother died of an aneurysm after childbirth. I mean, I was 3 weeks old, so the stresses or whatever it was, she died. And from that point on, my father, who was a working professional back then, he went to clinical depression. We were in Dayton, so the funeral was supposed to be in Birmingham, Alabama. He took her there. They were preparing for the funeral. As everyone was going to the funeral, my father got in the car with his 3 sons, drove back to Dayton, Ohio, did not attend the funeral, and he turned his phone off. So from then on, he kept himself private, the blinds closed in our home. And to my best recollection, the first 3.5, 4 years of my life was only inside of my house being carried around by my father, who was in clinical depression.
Mm.
So, very strange story. A woman that I'm still friends with to this day, she was in my kindergarten class. First day of school, we had to draw our family. I drew a stick dad, brother, stick me. And this person sitting next to me drew a stick dad, drew a little boy, drew herself with a triangle bottom half, and then drew another person with the triangle bottom half that was really big. I said, who is that person with the triangle bottom half, the big person with the triangle bottom half on your picture? She said, that's my mother. And I said, what is that? So the teacher came over, Miss Lackey came and
Mm.
wrote a note to my father. She didn't understand. She's like, you don't have a mother? I said, I don't. What is a mother? So
Mm.
and I remember this because we took the letter home. My father laughed and he said, "You don't have a mother, fool. You were delivered by a stork and were crying so much you were going to wake up the neighbors. So I decided to raise you. I'll tell you one day."
Mm.
And so I didn't hear the story until I was 10 years old that my mother died of an aneurysm. But 3 to 7 years old, my father, again, he was clinically depressed. He worked. He took us to school. We didn't have many friends. He kept me to himself. I remember going to the grocery store when I was like 5.5, and somebody said, "Oh, he's so pretty. Look at his hair." She went to touch my hair. "Don't touch my son. Get behind me. That's why I'm never bringing you back to the grocery store." And I never went back
Mm.
to the grocery store. That was the one time I went when I was a child. So he was very protective over me. How most kids get out of the bed and go sleep with their parents. My father used to get me out of bed to sleep with him every night. And I was 3 or 4 and said, "Daddy, why do I have to sleep with you every night? I don't want to sleep with you." He said, "Be quiet. You're the last thing my wife gave me." So that's just
Mm.
the first few years of life. I was still sent to school, and he was very bright. So taught me how to read, taught me how to write. We didn't watch a lot of television my first 5, 6 years of life, so I learned a lot of math. So I went into first grade already a scholar, knowing that education is important. And it felt good to be the fastest, in my addition, in my reading. It felt good to finish homework first and get a little gift. So I kind of stuck with that. I was conditioned from an early age to do well academically because of rewards.
Mm. Ashley, how did the death of your mom and the depression of your dad impact you when you were a child specifically?
You know, I didn't know I had a mother. So just like someone asking about one's great great grandfather, how was it to know Papa John? You don't know who they are. So I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like I had missed anything. I had a father who was there, who I snuggled with. I called him Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Mom sometimes. If I had an owie or boo boo, my daddy kissed it and made it better. He put lotion on my legs and on my face and brushed my hair every day and a bath every night and brushed my teeth and read bedtime stories to me. So all I knew was a father's love. So I'm an example of a person 100% raised by their father who experienced that foundation of fatherly love. So although he was depressed, and I can remember early on coming from school and saying, "Daddy," he said, "How was school today?" I said, "School was good. How was your day?" He said, "I missed your mom. I missed your mom." That's all I heard when I was little. I really didn't understand what that meant. I do now, but back then I didn't. So I was like, okay, and give him a hug and tell him about my day. It never affected me.
So what happened after that? You had that relationship with your father. You remained very close to him, and then what happened?
So super close to my father. I have a brother that's 2 years older. Their relationship is totally different, and a brother who's 12 years older. They have a totally third different version of a relationship with my father. So he showed up. He showed up in 3 different ways for his 3 different sons, and I learned throughout the years that our relationships were very different. Our memories of him and the things he would say are very different. Even how he disciplined us, very different. So when I was 7 years old, I started to notice when I was in second grade that things would come up missing. The first thing I noticed, he sold a snowblower, and that's when he got involved with drugs. The big crack epidemic in the '80s. He
Mm.
joined right in. He was depressed. He didn't really date ever again. So, but one thing he did do was invite all of those drug addicts literally into our home. My home was literally the trap house of Dayton, Ohio, late '80s, early '90s. The biggest drug house in Dayton, Ohio was the one I lived in on Chadwick Drive, believe it or not. There was a shootout in the house and everything. And so when he became drug addicted, I literally think I lost my father for the rest of my life. He became
Mm.
drug addicted. He was always in not a drunken stupor, but a drug stupor, and was just not himself. not really listening when you talk to him, always looking for crack. And although he never left us in our home, he was always there because he still loved us so much. I knew that the depression and the drugs together just took a toll on him. He was not there for us really emotionally, definitely not physically. And he had money, was getting Social Security from our mother, so we were able to live. But by the time I was 9 or 10 years old, there would be no food toward the end of the month, and so I became a certified kleptomaniac. I would still the last 5 days of the month, I just knew I had to go steal my food, and I did. I became a professional. Never got caught. So I remember 3, 4, 8 to 11 years old, I would steal most of my meals toward the end of the month. I knew how to do it and do it well. So it was a very hard upbringing with lights being out, roaches, rats, home, drug addicted people coming in. And, he was always there, maybe even to help with homework sometimes. But it was just the life I got used to. So again, for me, I just thought that's the way it was supposed to be. My brother, who's 2 years older, he knew something wasn't right. The one who was grown, 12 years older, he hated it for us, tried to do something about it, but he couldn't. So again, because I didn't know any better, I just thought that was life and that's how it was supposed to be. So I was actually pretty okay.
How did it impact you in school during, I'm assuming, elementary school, junior high, and then even in high school?
So ironically, we would sometimes, I remember it first happened third grade March. My son's in third grade now. So March, imagine the rest of the school year, no electricity. Uh, I didn't know any better. The lights were out. I just thought, lights are out. We got to do what we need to do. So we started to do homework as soon as we walked in the door when we still had daylight. We would do our homework and then go play. And so that became a habit that I stuck with for the rest of my life. So I just did my homework early. And because I didn't have any distractions, no TV, no phone, nothing fun to do, homework
Mm.
came first. And I started to do it well. And I would do a little bit more. There was nothing else to do a little bit more. And so I really excelled academically in school. My brother did too, all A's all the time. Our clothes would be sour. I was one of those sour kids that keep my coat on all day. It was pretty bad. But again, I didn't know any difference. I wasn't teased or bullied. So I just thought that's just what it was. And again, I was a scholar. So that kind of set me apart. And I felt good about that because I would go to school and thrive. So as we moved through elementary into middle school, we did have to go to Alabama for a year because he went to prison for something he did. But by the
Mm.
time I got to high school, freshman year, my brother, who the oldest one, was already in the military. The one who's 2 years older was a junior. I was a freshman. They got into a fight one day, uh, the end of my freshman year. Because of that fight, my brother hit my father over money. My father got a gun out, shot at my brother. Brother went to his high school, told the principal. Long story short, we were placed in foster care. My father went to
Mm.
prison. So freshman year of high school, when I lived with just my father and my brother, I was doing okay academic. I was like a ABC student.
Mm.
But by the time we got to foster care, it was stable, had mom and a dad. We started to go to church. I learned about God. That's when my grades picked back up. And I joined the Honor Society by sophomore year. I was the president by senior year. And I had a lot of friends, and I became a track star.
Mm. Share with the viewers some of the habits that you learned that have stuck with you to this day that have made you successful. You mentioned I would always come home first and do my homework, and then I will go out and play. You mentioned church, and you mentioned your religion. You mentioned you mentioned staying committed and staying focused. Share with the viewers what your ideals were, what your mindset was. What are some of the habits that have really made you resilient during that time that have stuck with you?
I would say one was early on academics, doing my homework, making good grades. I knew that the life that I was living, that it could be better. I knew that I wanted fruits and veggies in my refrigerator one day. I remember fourth grade, a woman came and we were talking about careers and what we want to be when we grow up. And there was a song that went along with it. You can be what you want to be.
Mm.
When we were in a circle and I was maybe the 10th student to be asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I don't really want to be anything. I just dream of a refrigerator filled with fruits and vegetables. And everybody
Mm.
laughed. And I was serious. That's what I just wanted, food. I'm like imagine those kids in Gaza. That's all they want. They're not worried about a doctor, a lawyer, teacher. I'm like, I just
Mm.
want food in my refrigerator.
Mm.
And people maybe thought I was telling a joke, and they just thought that was my personality, but I would really be saying real things about life and what I wanted and who I wanted to be at that age. But doing my homework, making good grades felt good, so that's what I stuck with. Through middle school, it felt good. High school, in the beginning, I didn't care, but then I started to realize if I'm going to get out of here, I have to go to college. And by sophomore year, when I decided early sophomore year that I wanted to go to Morehouse College, that's when I really got serious about my grades. I got serious about my athletics with track, and the habit of starting things and finishing them, seeing them through, has always been the golden
Mm.
rule for me. So even in my classes in school, they got hard. I had those higher level sciences and maths before I graduated high school. I didn't quit. I wanted to quit, but I didn't, and I stuck with it. And that's kind of who I became. Someone who would finish it no matter what.
Okay, so you've taken that same relentless spirit
Everywhere.
of everywhere. You've taken it to entrepreneurship. So let me ask you more of a direct question. When did you
Yes,
hit the first millionaire threshold, and what did it feel like?
it happened. You get there, you think you want to be a millionaire, you get there, and then it was just like your birthday. It's just a new day. So super grateful, but there's more. That's just the beginning, right?
Mm,
You get a
mm-hmm,
taste of it and you just want to keep going. Not to be greedy, but you
mm-hmm,
realize that doesn't make you happy. The success of creating something and having it come into the world, come to fruition, I think gave me more gratitude. And again, you focus on the goal, creating the business and having fun with it, and the money will come. And then, of course, as your podcast, the wealth mindset. I thought as a poor uh, son of a single parent drug addicted father in the 80s, when I get the big $1 million home, the luxury cars, and all these
mm-hmm.
different things, I'll be happy. And such is not the case. So in my egotistic life, I got all the things that would make one happy, who are those who are led by the ego, and those things that make me happy. As far as that serial entrepreneur spirit, that intangible something within, that fire to do something, say, forget these jobs, I'm not working for anybody, I'm going to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
I did it. In 2018, I started out making a shower cap, and we went to the set and sleep set, a bonnet and a pillowcase, and the company evolved into the liquid products during the pandemic, and then it morphed to a second company, Curls Pop and Dolls. So we have the doll company, and so e-commerce. Your goal is to get it to the world market on the world stage. I've done that.
Mm. So talk to me about that, because that is often what a lot of people say, especially that I interview. I was listening to something from Ken Honda, and he mentioned having a plane, being a millionaire and having a plane. And then he mentioned that he had his friends over, and another person had a plane, but this plane was more sleek, it went faster, and it was able to put in more people. And he said to himself, well, I'm not happy, I want that plane. So then they went over to that guy's plane and they rode in it, and they had a lot of fun. And then that guy invited his friends, so his friends came, and his friend had two or three planes, and these planes were smaller, sleeker, faster, and they were able to get there, in this very, very ironic and just glamorous way better than all the other planes. So Ken Honda and his friend said, well, I'm not happy, I want that plane. And so it's just this kind of parable of, getting stuff but still not being happy, and you keep mentioning that. And I wanted to touch on that. What is it that you weren't happy about, and how did that start impacting you once you realize that, hey, I'm climbing, I'm becoming more successful, I'm climbing, I'm becoming more successful, but there's still something that's missing? What was that thing that was missing?
That's a good question, and thank you for that example. I've heard of that before. Now, where I've really become successful with the business and the family, et cetera, and the things. It was actually, and I was 28 years old. I was working at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals as a project manager,
Mm,
making good money, no kids, single. And every other Friday I would get paid, and I'm like, oh, I thought I had to go to Kenneth Cole or Zara to go shopping, to buy myself something. I said, it's paydays. Every other Friday I have to buy myself something. And at the same time, I was speaking to my manager at work saying that I wanted to learn Spanish, and could she sign me up for a study abroad program in Spain. And so what ended up happening was the opportunity came for me to live in Dominican Republic for a year. And it became more so not wanting to learn Spanish, but my thought to move to the Dominican Republic was to have a mental reset, because I realized one day, with all these clothes. And in my closet in New York City, I had 2 or 3 bags of clothes that I didn't even take out, but I'm buying more that I wasn't happy
Mm.
with the things. I'm like, I
Mm.
thought this, why do I have so many clothes? What am I doing? I sat there on my bed with a Zara bag and I said, I'm not happy. What am I doing? And I said, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I am certainly going to move to the Dominican Republic. I need a reset. I need to live how they live, give everything away, come back with a new mindset. And so I did that at 29 years old.
Mm.
That's when I realized.
So let's bring us back to you being 29. Let's unpack that for a little bit. What was it that you were unhappy about? You had everything that you wanted. You were working at these big corporations. You had, amazing clothes. You were living in New York City. You were living in this fabulous condo or apartment building,
Yeah.
and you were living the dream. How could you possibly not be happy?
I felt so empty. I was going to speed dating, and I was hosting one actually, hosting speed dating. I was going to fashion shows. I was buying clothes. Money was in the bank. Had the job. Had the apartment. Didn't have a car, but I something inside me said I was looking for something. I was searching for something. I couldn't find it. I didn't know what it was. It was intangible, and it,
Mm.
it was not in the outside world. It was within, something I wasn't tapping to, something I wasn't acknowledging. It was that none of this was important. I was working
Mm.
out. I was doing all the things, but it's something I just felt empty. I would go shopping. Like, I would ask myself, what am I doing here? Maybe it was my subconscious, the spirit of God. Sometimes like, Ashley, what are you doing? And my
Mm.
answer was, I don't know, but I like this
Mm.
shirt and I'll buy it. So, I but then I knew there was a conflict that I wasn't going to therapy or anything. I knew there was something wasn't right with me, and I knew it. And it was more
Mm.
so when I would buy things, I would think they would make me feel good, the new pair of boots or this or that. G-Star jeans, Diesel was big back then. I bought my Diesel jeans. I would buy these things and I wouldn't feel any better. So I was like, what
Mm.
do I need to do to feel better? And I was like, I think I need to get rid of everything and start over. And so I did.
Mm. What were you missing?
I was missing the love for myself and the knowledge and knowing that all that peace and happiness comes from within, not from the exterior, not from things.
Mm.
I wasn't in a relationship or anything. It was just I was searching for something. I didn't know what it was. I think the ego. I think friends knowing I had a good job at Pfizer and I would pay for lunch and we'd go out to eat, visit. I'm taking care of everything. I thought those things. I mean, it looked good. It felt good for friends to feel good about me sponsoring them and visiting me and knowing I was the friend in New York who take care of them when they visit. But it didn't make me feel better when I would do those things, and it didn't make me feel better when I'd be by myself buying clothes. So
Mm.
I just knew something needed to be reset. I need to give it all up. That this quote unquote being rich,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and having things, that wasn't it for me.
It seemed like you were trying to buy the love that you were missing.
You're right. Yeah, I was. I
Why?
wasn't close to my brothers at the time. You're right.
Mm. You weren't close to your brothers. Your your father had passed away by that time.
Correct.
But you mentioned that you went on to your mental reset when you got into the Dominican Republic.
Yes, I did.
And what did you discover there?
I discovered myself. I discovered a passion for giving back. I discovered
Mm-hmm.
that when it felt better to give and to help people and to spend time with people, poor people, than to be with all the rich friends and all the things in New York City and the Audis and the BMWs and the Mercedes. It was so much more fun on our little mopeds in the DR. So when I went there, sent all my boxes of name brand clothes and polo shirts and all these things, in a month or two, I realized those people didn't care about that. They just wanted to spend time with me and play
Mm-hmm.
cards and dominoes in the streets and drink a Presidente. And so
Mm-hmm.
by month three, I gave all those clothes and watches and things I thought was going to make me a cool person in DR. I gave it all away, started to wear what they wore. And I started to feel really happy every day. And people just wanted, hey man, Ashley, let's go play some cards. Let's go play dominoes. Those things felt good. And I started to teach and tutor. I was teaching down there the year I was there. I taught, but I also to tutor on the side and just giving myself felt better than anything in the world. And it did not it changed me for life. And I've been that way ever since.
Mm. Well, how were you before? If you were giving after, were you not giving before?
Absolutely was not. I was selfish. I did have the only way I did give. I had like a sponsored kid in the Philippines, $15 a month. But besides that, the answer was no. You need to borrow money. No, you need help with this. No, I can't help
Mm,
you. Do you want to volunteer? You're a clinical scientist and you're a degree in chemistry. Do you want to tutor chemistry for these high school kids in Harlem? No, no. I would say no to all that. When I got back, I just reached out to those same people that I said no to years prior, and I
mm,
became a tutorer for Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated,
mm,
Upper East Side, New York, a
mm,
tutor for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I volunteered at church and different YMCA in Harlem, all those different things. Start to give. Felt good.
mm. So was that the end of your story, or did you continue to struggle after that? Because oftentimes, what I see with people who I speak to is we go through different milestones. Every level has a new devil. So at
Yes.
level one, there might be, hey, I did a reset for the Dominican Republic and I was able to find myself. But at level two, when you come back around to that same feeling, how were you able to tackle it? So my question is this: one of the misnomers about elite men is that we do not suffer, and somehow we overcome all of our problems. Even in these great podcasts and interviews, we always talk about the big problem that we overcame and then we lived happily ever after. But in Wealthy Minded, I try to dispel that myth by exposing our struggles and how we are consistently and repeatedly and repetitively working to confront them. So, what are some areas in your life that you still struggle with, no matter how hard you try to overcome it?
Did a struggle come back around? And I would say yes to your
Mm,
to your point. So I came back from Dominican Republic that first year back. You know, needed some friends, leaned on some friends, stayed with them, got another good job, got another good title, but I have a different mindset. I'm not buying all the things every Friday, every other Friday anymore. I'm focused, I'm giving back, I'm tutoring, I'm doing these things. But then, that ego, if you let it, I have it under control now, but if you let it, it will come back. So I got the Mercedes, and I'm
mm,
that guy in the Mercedes and all those things. And I was hosting a date night with people for people to meet the perfect spouse, the perfect match. But at the same time, as I'm pairing people up, and I've probably paired 5 to 10 couples who are married now up, I would date, and my standards were so high, it was almost ridiculous of what I wanted, who I wanted. Somebody was
mm,
beautiful in this and that, and education, and how many kids they wanted to have, and how much money they're making. I was ridiculous
mm.
because somehow, some way, I thought that, again, those things were how I was supposed to search for a better half, to search for my spouse. And so from 30 to 33, I struggled dating because I didn't know what I really wanted and didn't know what I really needed.
So you came back, you took on a different mindset. You brought in this really good essence about yourself of wanting to give. And that
Yes.
filled a certain void within you, but it seems like it still wasn't completely fulfilling. So, because it wasn't completely fulfilling, the story that you were telling was that you continue to do the same things that you were doing before, which is, buy the Mercedes, buy the clothes, go into some of those same habits, and on top of that, you were reaching for perfection. You were reaching
Yes.
for perfection now, not only in your scholastics and your in your athleticism, but now you were reaching perfection in dating.
Yes.
How did this so tell me, at this level two, every level has a new devil,
Yes.
where did this relate back to? Because there's always an impetus of where this was grounded into. I, how did you go back to that? How did you go back to the materialism? How did you go back to or create this new awareness of, man, I really dipped into perfectionism? Why do you think those things were coming up? What did you think it was going to solve?
I thought that it was going to just, for the world and how I was viewed in the world, it would have everyone give me a level of respect,
Mm,
of feeling like I've earned this, the degrees and all those things. So I think I was thinking it was going to give me some level of respect.
that part.
Hmm.
You were looking for respect.
Exactly.
Okay. So, in your pursuit of respect, you start going now level two of going through these kind of mental hurdles and, going through perfectionism and looking for respect. what happened after that? How did you confront that that devil at that level in order for you to now find your wife and live this lifestyle of having four beautiful sons?
Well, actually, I started to realize that what I was looking for wasn't there, wasn't out there. If you want that, you're going to be alone forever. And I think a lot of people have that mindset today. So
Mm,
they are left alone, successful with all the material things and alone.
mm,
So I knew that something had to compromise if I did not want to be alone.
mm. And what was that?
My standards, or not that I had to lower them, but I had to be more realistic in what I wanted. Do I actually want somebody who looks like X, Y, and Z, or am I okay with having what I need, which is a person that loves me? I can love them. They're fun, spend time together. We have the
Mm,
same interests. I was a little ridiculous with everything that I wanted and what I had on paper, and so I had to say, you
mm,
know what, just be more realistic be in the real world with what you want, and you'll find somebody. And so that's what I
mm.
did.
It sounds like the difference between realistic and ridiculous of what you're saying is
Yes,
some of those things that you consider ridiculous weren't in alignment with who you truly are.
right,
And some of the things that were realistic actually were part of who you truly are. And the
exactly
steps
that.
that you took was to filter that out, the parts that were superficial or the parts that didn't really align with you and what you really wanted and what really made you fulfilled, and integrating the parts of you that did fulfill you. Did I interpret that correctly?
You articulated that exactly. Yes,
Okay, okay. So that's what you mean. So it seems like you started doing that naturally
I
because
did.
some people, it takes them years to actually become aware of how to actually do that.
That's true.
What are some of the mindset hacks that have helped you to continue to make better decisions? I think that's what this comes down to is when you're able to integrate and when you're able to extricate, when you're able to extricate the ridiculous and when you're able to integrate the the grounded real parts of you, then you're able to start making better decisions because now you become more of a full and whole person.
You're
So
right.
now how has that helped you in your decision making, not only in picking your beautiful wife, but also in mentoring and giving the tutelage to your kids?
I love that question. So I think the bigger theme of all of this is that sometimes, even when you talk about the ego, you're looking for approval externally from other people, from other things. And so what I've learned to do with even our businesses is to not look to the left or to the right for approval from anyone, even from family members, but to look within, to get the
Mm,
things and go for the things and strive for the things that make me happy. And that's what I've
mm,
done.
mm. So now you're at level 3.
I'm at level 3.
What was the turning point? Because a lot of times, from what you mentioned, that respect that we uncovered was actually unconscious. It wasn't this conscious respect thing because from the time that I've known you, you've always given respect and you've always received respect. You've always been looked at as one of the most respected men in the room.
I
But for
appreciate that.
some reason, you felt like you needed that respect, which was unconscious.
You're
What was
right.
the what was the turning point that turned it from something that was unconscious to a conscious and healthy respect for yourself?
When did I realize there was a conscious at all times in every room respect? It was always there, but for
Mm-hmm.
some reason I felt there was a lack of it.
You
I
didn't have to
think
prove yourself anymore. You didn't have to do all those things.
I like the question because I believe as a consultant in 2015, before I moved here, I was an international FDA consultant, and I lived in Canada, Toronto, Canada, from January to June 2016.
Mm,
I feel in that role with the Mercedes parked in New York and all the things that I realized my education, the things that I knew, the way that I showed up in a professional workplace, it wasn't about skin color. It wasn't about anything but what I put into those environments, I got back. And I worked with 7 individuals who were retired FDA. It was myself and my boss and 7 retired FDA individuals. And I feel like I had the respect. I had the voice at the table. I reported to the CEO, and I think in that role, it wasn't about color or DEI or me being given anything. I realized that I worked for this, and that
Mm.
I belong in this room. And so, with that attitude, that positive attitude, when I met my now wife, October 2015, I said, I'm confident enough to leave my entirely furnished apartment, all my shoes, everything, cologne, everything. I'm going to pack one bag. I'm going to drive from New York City to LA, Los Angeles, California. I thought I was going to stay there and be long distance with my wife here. But ironically, I knew I'd get a job. The first day I got to San Diego, this is how I showed up for an interview. They called me and they said, "Hey, Ashley, there's a job. I know you have in your resume LA, but it's in San Diego." I said, "How ironic. My girlfriend is in San Diego." And they said, "Would you want to interview for it?" I said, I will interview for it under one condition, that when I leave that interview, tell me if I got the job or not, because I need a job. This is my
Mm.
first day in California.
Wow.
I drove down, I put on my suit, I interviewed. At the end of the interview, they said, "Ashley, you got the job."
Wow.
Guess what? I never left San Diego since that day. I moved in with Lindsay, been with her ever since. We got married in Paris the next year. Everything in my apartment, I told my friends to just go and divide it up. Send me some clothes.
God, I wish I was
Keep
there
it.
during that time.
Keep everything. Keep everything. The TV, the refrigerator, the bedroom set, TV, the Timberlands. Keep it all the leather coats. Keep everything. Just send me 2 bags of these clothes. I've been in San Diego ever since we got married a year later. It's now 10 years later, and we've been married 9 years and have 4 sons.
Mm.
And every room I
Congratulations,
walk
man.
into, every job I apply to, every consulting gig that I'm considered for, I walk into the room, we interview, and I feel like I left it all on the table. If it's for me, it's for me. In every job I wanted since I've been here, I've gotten. Every consulting gig I've gone for, I've gotten. So the respect is there. I demand it.
I love that for you, man.
Thank you.
Some of our listeners might be financially successful, or actually,
Yes.
a lot of our listeners are very financially successful, but not all of them have a healthy mindset, which is something that I really promote.
Yes, of
It's
course.
identity shift, and it's strategic psychological reprogramming around relationships, their kids, their health, their time management, their spiritual development, their community, etc. That's what, or I should say, those are the fruits of what wealth will bring to you when you do the inner work, the mental
Yes.
shifting and the identity shifting. How do you make sure to prioritize your mindset so that you can be the best version of yourself for for everything and for everyone else?
How do I prioritize my mindset? Well, I
Yes.
know as the head of my family, the father, the husband to my wife, and father to my 4 sons, I have to show up powerfully every day. So in order to prioritize myself, at least twice a week, I'm up at 4:20 a.m. I'm at the gym for a 5 o'clock workout. I'm eating healthy. I'm back at home, waking them up at 6:45, and they know that daddy's gone to the gym. If they
Mm,
wake up and mommy's gone, she could be out of town. She could be in the backyard. If they say mommy or daddy's not in the room, they say, "Is mommy at the gym? Is daddy at the gym?" What a
mm,
wonderful question to ask your other parent about the other
mm,
one. That if you're not at home at 7 in the morning, are they at the gym?
mm,
So
mm,
that's how I prioritize myself. I know that I have to be, and even a company we created called Boss Parents. It's the premise of it is that we educate, validate, motivate, and inspire. But it started because when we were pregnant with number one, someone said, "Oh, when you guys travel a lot, when you have babies, that's going to stop. Your life is over. You can't do anything when you have kids." Well, first year out, our son Carter went on over 50 trips on the airplane.
wow.
And we started a podcast when he was 7 weeks old. He went to his first trip to a wedding. We started our podcast, Boss Parents, because we said we wanted to show the world that if you show up powerfully in your marriage for your spouse first, you show up more powerfully for your children. So we put each
Mm,
other first to show up powerfully for our children. So we prioritize ourselves individually within our marriage, and then our marriage before our children. And that's how we live a happy life where we understand how we feel, and we live a life that our kids can be proud of, knowing the parents prioritize themselves, including date night or trips without the children.
Mm. It seems like you are now mirroring the example that they can lead and that they can see, instead of
Exactly.
working towards being that person or trying to push towards being that person. It seems like the decisions that you have been making have been up leveling not only your life, but also confronting some of the nuances and the demons of your past. A lot of people don't understand when they become parents that which you have within you passes on to your kids. And it seems like you work really hard in making sure that you didn't pass on some of those bad habits, those mindsets, and some of those toxic traits onto your kids. Ashley, thank you for joining another episode of Wealthy Minded. You'll find ways to connect with Ashley in the episode description. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to share and subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, our community, stay wealthy.